This module has argued that the political settlements that end the big wars help structure international politics. Because the United States has been a key player in each of the big settlements of the 20th century, the United States has subsequently played a huge role in defining global politics. I briefly here just want to recount some of the ways in which U.S. foreign policy has helped to define this global structure, and we're going to begin by looking at the Versailles settlement that ended World War I. The United States officially entered World War I in the spring of 1917. The major combatants had already suffered significant losses over the prior 3 years. The Tsarist regime in Russia had collapsed, and Great Britain and France were heavily dependent on American loans to continue the war. So in this map, we can just look at some of the broad overview of what happens over the course of World War I. So here, this first map just lines up the principal combatants. You have, when the war starts in 1914, you've got Great Britain, France on one side, and allied with Germany against the Central Powers. Great Britain and France are allied with Russia, and they're fighting against the Central Powers, which include Germany and Austria-Hungary. Okay. 1917, the U.S. intervenes in the war, and in 1918, Germany launches a series of offensives in Western Europe that were designed to try and end the war. These military offensives fail, in large part because the United States had begun to send significant numbers of troops to Europe in the summer of 1918, and they played a significant role in halting these offensives and turning the tide of the war. Now, this military intervention places the United States in the position of having significant influence over the peace negotiations that would begin in the fall of 1918. In particular, President Woodrow Wilson, would force the Kaiser of Germany to abdicate, paving the way for German democracy as a condition for peace in November of 1918. So Wilson plays a large role in the 1919 settlement. His ideas motivated an attempt to create a fundamentally different international order. He championed self-determination, the idea that people should be able to determine their own political fate by setting up their own institutions of governance. This movement helps to spur independence in a number of empires around the world, where colonies revolt against empires and acquire political independence. I think it's fair to say more broadly that Wilson's efforts unleashed a new political force, which really made it much more difficult for the imperialism of the 19th century to survive. It strengthened the viability of nationalism as a mobilizing force for collective action that then helped foster local resistance to imperial rule. From 1919 on, these pressures gave rise to a steady increase in the number of independent states in the international system. Second, while we haven't discussed it in depth yet, Wilson also spawned a new support for democracy promotion by the United States. And this goal has really helped to define American grand strategy since then. Third, the United States also set a precedent in 1919, supporting the creation of international organizations like the League of Nations as instruments of international governance. Important to realize that U.S. support for the League of Nations was temporary. It lasted for all of 1919. When Wilson can't get support from Congress for this, so Wilson supports it in the peace negotiations, presses for it in the peace negotiations, but he didn't get domestic buy-in. So U.S. support for the League of Nations is temporary after World War I. However, it comes back after 1945. And the United States since then has played an important role in supporting multilateral governance, right? And these foreign policy ideas and support for multilateralism in the United States rests on the belief that organizations like the United Nations and NATO are capable of provoking cooperation among states in defense of an existing political order.